the command line interface, how to use it, and the shell, and why you want to use it. We have mostly already talked about that, but now it is time to learn some more about it, and it's time to learn when you should use it. And this is showing you how a typical shell might look when you have just started it. And in this case, I have logged in to a system, which is Kebnekaise. Sorry, I have something in my throat. This shows a terminal window where I'm logged into Kebnekaise from my work desktop Defiant. I am currently on my home desktop, and if I opened a terminal, I could do that, then it would look like this. And this one is called Enterprise. And I just want to briefly check if someone asked something. It was Pedro who shared the link to the Q&A. So please put questions there if you have any. Okay, so as I said, this shows how it would look when you log into some other system. And you also just saw me do that here. So the command line is an interface for typing commands directly to a computer's operating system. It is a user interface that is navigated only with the keyboard by typing commands at a prompt instead of clicking with a mouse or something similar. So it's available in all operating systems, as I mentioned before, and actually it's also available in Windows, but it's mostly associated with Linux when people think of it. And one thing you notice is that both here, you see if I'm scrolling up a little bit here, you see there's this $ here, and that is a symbol that it is bash. Sometimes there can be a percentage, or there can be a hard parenthesis larger than, or whatever we should call this symbol. And that depends on the type of shell, if it's C shell or bash or whatever it is. And in any case, it is a prompt, and it means the shell is waiting for input from you. And the opposite of this command line interface is a GUI, which is the graphical user interface, and that's where you usually use a mouse or similar when you navigate. Command line interfaces gives often access to many more capabilities than the graphical user interface does. It's also practical and normally faster in situations where you log in with a terminal on a remote system like Tetralit or Kebnekaise, as I did just before on this example on the page here. And I logged into Tetralit on this one instead. So as mentioned, it's a special user program. It interfaces between keyboard and operating systems. And it automates repetitive tasks or combines several tasks is one thing you can do when you're writing in a shell to make your workflow more efficient. I want to say one thing here because many places in this example here and also in the examples you find elsewhere on this documentation and in other documentation, there will be this $ I talked about, the prompt. It may be shown in the commands, and it is something you should not copy when you are copying another command. I mean, so you should only copy the command itself, not the prompt when you are copying it to use it yourself. And also, it is the case that there will be some other stuff in front of the prompt that also differs between systems. But in this case, on Tetralit, it shows the username, it shows the login node, and it shows the working directory you are in, but not the full path. At some systems, HPC2N, for instance, it will show the full path, So that means the prompt may fill the whole line, but you can immediately see where you are. So, I mean, I guess it depends on choices. And now you may hear words as shell, terminal, console, command line interface. What are the difference? Are they the same or what are they? Well, the terminal is a text input-output environment. The console was originally a physical terminal. It's now often being used also as another name for a shell window or terminal window. But shell is really the command line interpreter, but it is also often just used as the name for the shell itself or the terminal window. Many people will use these words interchangeably. There is a slightly longer answer if you feel like reading it here. But if you haven't already logged in, do so and go back and do these small preparations so you have the exercises. Because now it is time to do a few code along, with a few commands. And these commands I will describe very much more detailed in the next session that we will go to in a little while. But right now, I just want you to simply try and see what happens when you type something at the prompt. So you could try write ls, as I already did here. And when I do so, I see what is in the directory. You can create a file. You can name it anything, but this just creates an empty file. So I will just say touch my file text. And I will do ls again to show you that it actually created a file. There's nothing in it, but it just created it. You can also create a directory with mkdir, and I will just call it mydir because I'm not very inventive. And that creates a directory. And these commands we will look at very shortly. This is just that I would like you to simply try and type something and see how the shell responds. One thing to pay attention to, you will maybe get error messages if you mistype something or if you try to access something that's not available. If, for instance, you wanted to type ls, you typed ks because you hit the wrong button, it just gives you command not found. And it looks like this. Bash the shell tells you the ks is not a command I know. Or maybe you actually hit a command that does exist but isn't the one you wanted to do, but it will tell you that as well. You may also try to do something to a file that doesn't exist. If you say ls on a file that does exist, then it lists the file. If you say ls on a file that doesn't exist, you will be told there is no such file or directory. It will actually give the same error message if the file exists, but you do not have access to it. And that is perhaps due to permissions, and permissions we will talk about later as well. So what are the key points? Well, a shell is a special user program. It's an interface between keyboard and the operating system. It takes input from the user, sends it to the OS, which then performs the actions requested. We'll use bash in this course. You can run programs from the shell by entering commands at the command line prompt. There are many advantages to using the shell, particularly the ability to automate repetitive tasks, combine smaller tasks in a script, as well as the speed of executing commands compared with more resource-heavy GUIs. It's also much easier to use remotely, like if you are logging into some system like I have done here. Is one difficulty with the shell could be how do I find out which commands exist and how to run them?